Next function is the DCOUNT function. So it is very much similar like DAVERAGE and DSUM function. It calculates the total count we are passing it to. Using this, the cell contained numbers are encountered in the field of records in a list or a database, that much conditions that are specified by you. Points to remember: select complete database, keep the header same for the criteria. So let's try this function. But we have the DCOUNT function. So let me write count of the units sold as well. So let me copy this and pasting it here. This is my value. Let me change the range here. Because of the copying it, it has taken some blank rows that I don't want to have it here. So instead of DAVERAGE function, let me write here DCOUNT function. So what DCOUNT function is doing, it counts the cell containing numbers in the field of records in the database that match the conditions you specify. So this is 78. This is the value here, and let's try it. How we can try it here? So what I'll do, I'll write, let me calculate this divided by this rather than this. I'll write it again. I want to calculate average manually. So this is my total units and this is my count here. Yes, it is same. So my count function is working very fine, but I read somewhere that it counts only the numerical values. So using this cell, the cells that contain numbers that are counting in a field, it is talking about the numbers. Let's give a text data to this one. So this time what I am doing, to this DCOUNT function, I'll come and I'll give another field here. So let me write here date function. So let's try that, whether it work on date function or not. 1 2 3 4 5. So I date is 5th column with me. So this is again working very fine. 78 I'm taking, and let me give C, that is entirely text. Now I'm getting 0. So in case of text values, I'm getting 0 because this count function can only count the numerical values. It cannot work with the text function. That is why it is returning me 0. So if you try it with the order ID, so let me give 2 here. I'll write here 2 here. Even it is working fine for the second column as well. Let me write here first. I'll passing here first column. So first is also 78. So let me change some more conditions here. This time I'll make it 3, 2, and 1. So I got a different answers here for total units sold, for the average as well, for the counts as well. So all three functions are taking same kind of criteria. The first one is the database itself. The second is the column. Third is the criteria. Let me change some other values here. I'll be deleting this, and let me add one more thing here. I have something. Let me copy it from the last. I have this white chocolate and macadamia nut. Control C, and I'll take it here and I will be writing it to here. I'm putting into the product here, and the customer ID, let me write 4. I will be deleting it here, and let me do the changes with the conditions here. I'll be changing the criteria. I'll be changing the criteria for all three functions. This is my criteria in the first case. In the case of average, what we have, let me try with the average. This is working for now, and let me try for the DCOUNT function as well. So I'll be putting a new criteria here so we can see the changes here. So this is some unit sold is written here, average you can see here, and count you can see here. So now you can have a multiple criterias here, and depending on these kind of values you can actually draw anything. So like you can pass this value to a pivot chart as well, any pivot table as well. You can go ahead with it, that kind of a data set here. So you can have that range with you, and accordingly you can calculate. So if I pass it to a chart, let me draw a chart here. What I have, insert, I'll go with the insert, and then I'll come to, let me come to the recommended chart only. So I'll come it here. So you can have a chart outline like this. So I'll come this. So this is my chart here. As I have a more values for units sold, this I can see here. So unit sold, count, unit sold, you can see it here. Similarly, I can have a different style as well. So you can pass that data, you can change the criteria, and similarly, you can change it into the pivot chart as well. So that value you can use. So whenever you are doing data analysis, you might be working on the large data set, provide the criteria and initial data summary you can provide in that manner with the database functions. These are the database functions. So let's see what we have, what other functions we can work on. So this is, if I see here, I have some other functions as, so if we see DCOUNT, we already covered. This is counts the cells containing numbers in the field of records in the database that match the conditions you specify. Then we have a DCOUNT A functions. It counts the non-blank cells in the field of records in the database that match the conditions you specify. So basically, what if you are having that blank value in that particular field, it will be ignored by this count A function. Non-blank cells will be there. Then in the next, what we have, if we see the what we have with the DMAX D function, then we have something as a DMAX as well. This is returns the largest number in the field of records in the database that match the conditions you specify. So quickly, let's try this DMAX function as well. So let me work on the same range. I'll be writing here maximum value. I'll write maximum value for, again, for the units sold only. This I'm trying here, and before that I have something as an error. Let me change. Yeah, this is fine. Let me do ignore error. This is something we have. Let me correct my range first. This is the first thing we need to do. This I am correcting the range here. I can fix the values as well. If I'm not doing anything, any changes, now I can fix the values as well by using absolute reference as well. This is my D average here. So instead of D average, what I'll come with a function DMAX. This is my function, returns the largest number in the field of records in the database that match the conditions you specify. So the first case is database we are providing C column, again unit sold, and the criteria we are giving. So we have the value 3850 as the maximum value for that particular set. Like in when you are using a normal maximum function, you can pass only one value to that. You can pass only one column to that. With this DSUM function, you have a multiple criteria for that database, and then you are having that values here. See how powerful of this function. So let's try again what we have again. So DCOUNT A we already discussed. Then we have D maximum we already covered. If we quickly try D minimum as well. So I'll come to, again, let me copy this and I'll come to this. This is my minimum here. Minimum we are trying here, minimum function. I'll come the minimum value unit sold. I'll copy this here and let me do the changes with the range first. So this time, let me have an entire range here. This is my range I'm passing here, and let me write it for the minimum function. This is my DMIN. So we are getting the minimum value. So minimum value is 257. What we have next? D minimum we already tried. Next, what we have? Dollar. Again, you can see we have D for standard deviation. D for standard deviation with the population. DSUM we already tried. D variance and D variance with the population. So whatever functions that are used for the data summarization that are provided or that have the flexibility to work on the database functions, providing into extension to that particular function. So this time, quickly let's try the standard deviation as well. So I'll come with the standard deviation. So we have DS standard deviation. It estimates a standard deviation based on a sample from a selected database. So I'll write here standard STDEV. This is my function. Now you see again same kind of criteria is given here. So let me copy this quickly, and first thing I'll do as changing the range. Range is product and customer ID. And instead of D minimum, I'll write here D standard deviation, STDE standard deviation. So this is my standard deviations result. So I'll write it here also. What I have here, standard deviation for units sold. Similarly, you can try it for with population as well. So let me fix this time the values here, the range here. I'll fix the value. I'm putting here that kind of reference here, so it should not change every time. This I'm fixing the value here. Let me copy it here again, so I can see here the my range is fixed now. Instead of D standard deviation, I'll come with D standard deviation with the population. So you can see something a result with a different here. So I'll write here with population. Let me write here population, whatever function we are using, population. Next, we are left with the variance as well. So quickly try variance as well. So let me copy this and I will be writing here what I have for the unit sold. I have variance here, variance. Then I have this is with the variance with the population. This everything we are doing with the units sold. So let me copy this to these two columns, and instead of standard deviation, I'll come to D variance. This is my D variance. I have values for my variance now. Now I'll come to again this value and I'll come with the population this time, D variation. So now how many functions we have tried? This we tried DSUM function, we tried. Then we tried DAVERAGE function. Something wrong with my spelling here. This is my DAVERAGE function. Then we tried DCOUNT. We talked about DCOUNT A as well. And here then we talked about DMAX as well. Then we talked about DMIN function we tried. Or see, Excel is how smart it is writing everything. It understood it as a formula and giving me the result here. And then we tried standard deviation as well. This was my this function standard deviation I should write here. D standard deviation, D variance we tried. And then we tried, I'll correct here, this was with the population. I'll write it population. Then we tried D var P. This was our another function. So these all are the data based functions. How many functions we can say? We total have 10 functions here, including this DCOUNT A as well. So all these 10 functions are taking same argument, that is the total 3 argument. One is database, the second argument is field, and the third argument is criteria. And we are passing same criteria. Now quickly let me change the column number here. So instead of unit sold, I'll pass this product to everything. So let's see what kind of changes we have it here. I'll be giving product here. So instead of unit sold, I have now value for the product. So it's giving me 0. So we are basically checking which functions work for the text value. In case of numeric, it is working fine. So here in average, we got an error because it is trying to divide by 0, and total has been resulted as 0 here only. Now let me pass it to again. This is, I have product here. So in case of DCOUNT as well, I'm getting 0. Let me try quickly for DCOUNT A as well. So I'll be copying it here, or before that I'll fix the values. So I'll use a relative reference here. This is my relative reference. I'm putting relative reference here, and let me copy it here. DCOUNT A, I want to try whether this A will work or not. This is giving me this 92. So it can take the character values because it is basically for the blank and non-blank. If it is non-blank, then it will calculate, and this normal count is working for the only numerical values. Next, I have for the maximum value. So again, I am passing this product to this function. So let's see how it responds with the character set. Again, it is 0 here. If I try it with the minimum, then again it will give me some same kind of resultant. This is my product. If I do it for the standard deviation product, I am doing here again divide by 0 error. So if I try for another standard deviation, So this is with the population. Again, I'll get the same error. If I do for the variance as well, in that case, what we are taking, again a divide by 0 error. And if I do for standard deviations with the variance with population, again we are getting a divide by 0 error. So from out of 10 functions, only one function is workable with the character values, a string value, that is a count a function, because it only calculates this count a function only takes a value as, if I see the description here, you can see the DCOUNT a function. So it counts non-blank cells in the field or of a records in the database that match the conditions you specify. And apart from that, all other functions are doable with numerical set, numerical kind of value. Only then we can get the correct results here. So if I change to a numerical value, let's try it for the date now. If we are using it for the date functions. So this date function is, let me calculate the column number this time rather than writing date 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So this is my fifth column. So I will be passing 5 in place of product here. So let me write 5 here for the DSUM function. So we are getting some kind of error, or we are getting some kind of a value that we can convert into the date function. So if I mark it here, if I change the format cell to a date, I'll come to this date. So this is, or let me come with a smaller date. I'll make it here like this. This is my date function here. So this is some a large value I am getting here. So that result is not understandable. So let me pass it to, next I'll come to a normal numerical value only. I'll come here format cell and I'll mark it as a number only. So let's see, we have a something result like this. If I come to DAVERAGE function, I'm giving a date function, date column here 5. So again, some results we are getting this time. This has calculated the average as well. If I come with the DCOUNT, so ultimately conversion we can do. So count is working fine. If I do with the DCOUNT A as well, so let's see with the fifth column, I'll give here 5. So it is working fine with the count function. If I give with the maximum value, so it will again give me some result. If I convert this into a date, let's see the result here. So I'll write here. So this has given me exact date here. Similarly, we can do the conversion it for here also. And if I try the minimum value here, so let me pass it the fifth column here. So these functions are also taking the date values as well. Let me convert this again. I have a specific number coding for that, and that coding is represented here. What we need to do, we need to convert it into the date, and then we can come up with the result. This is my minimum date here. So we can have the range as well in the database. This way you can calculate it like you have the data set from which to which date. That range you can have from these kind of DMAX and DMIN function. You can pass it to the date. Let me calculate the standard deviation this time for the date. It will be error or not. So it has calculated actually the values. In case with the population as well, I'm getting some kind of result. If I calculate it with the variance as well, again I am getting something as a resultant. If I try variance with the product as well, then also I am getting the result. So we have total calculated 10 functions, all related with the list functions we are talking about. And what we have here, we have something as similar. If we see, start from the DSUM, we have database function. So with the DSUM function, we can actually add the numbers. All these 10 functions take 3 arguments. The first one is the database, second is the field, and third is the criteria. And you can add multiple criterias by writing in the downward or the rightward direction. If you're writing in the downward direction, then you are having a OR kind of logic. If you are adding the criteria into the rightward direction, that time you are having a AND kind of logic. After that, we covered DAVERAGE function. It calculates the average values. Then we talked about the DCOUNT function. And if we compare it with the DCOUNT and DCOUNT A function, DCOUNT function counts the numerical values and DCOUNT A function calculates the non-blank values. Then we talked about the D minimum function, D maximum function, D standard deviation function, D standard deviation with population function, D variance function, D variance function with the population.